Oh my gosh. Okay, so good morning, Susan. Hi, hey Rexy. I know. Yes, are you coming to make me feel better? Which, ironically, I don't know if you guys have noticed or have caught um, in the mornings on Instagram as well as over on YouTube. I've been doing these morning musings where I basically answer a question. Well, this morning was the question I chose to respond to was, how do I start believing in myself more? And it was all about, the response, kind of my recommendation to people is your self-belief is tied to your confidence, and your confidence is about staying in action and revisiting what you are successful at, how you've made a positive impact, reminding and acknowledging yourself of the good you've done. Well, obviously, I was forecasting this experience because right now in my mind, I'm going, okay, we've done this like literally for 2 years. Every week, we've done it over 100 times. You've got this. You can do it. You can draw from, right? So I am literally like in my having this conversation in my mind as I'm trying to pull together the information I need to um, to do this live training with you guys. And so I'm having to laugh because literally I could be crying um, because there has been not much challenge just in the last 8 or 9 minutes. So we are focusing this morning, right? The training is really not on me and my issues this morning. That's not your training, but welcome to reality. We all experience it, right? So I guess I'm sharing it one to allow myself the space to remind myself that I'm human and to really model for you guys that it's okay to screw up because so far the first 8 minutes have been like a complete screw up. Anyways, digital marketing. As we're doing a live training on a digital marketing platform, we're going to talk about 3 digital strategies about growing your business between now and the end of the year. We have just completed the first quarter. We are in the midst, the very tail end of tax season. So if you're inundated with trying to get your taxes done for your personal, your business, we're due for the state of Michigan. And if you're here in the US, we're due last month. Your personal taxes are due this coming, what is it, Tuesday, a week today. So if you're kind of overwhelmed, hopefully this training we're going to do right now is a nice break for that, a nice diversion. So we can really focus on building your business over the next 9 months. All right. So yeah, like I'm laughing. I'm just laughing myself to sleep here, to be really honest. As I'm going to try and just one more time, cross my fingers, I can pull up my notes and see what I can find, see if something comes up. But if it doesn't, that's all right. We'll wing it and we'll be just fine. We'll be just fine. All right, here we go. So we're going to go over 3 strategies. Last week, we were working on, and this is why I have all this stuff pulled up so I can kind of refer, right? Last week, we were talking about mastering our customer experience. And this week, I really wanted to kind of take it, good morning, Carmen, take it a little bit deeper into the actual strategy piece about growing your business and marketing, right? Because we can talk to our audience, we can have the greatest customer service, we can have, we know our ideal client, but if we don't have some sort of systematic strategy to implement it or to start creating it, then doing all of that background work will be for naught. So if we were going to say, right, so we're going to talk about 3 things. See, this is what happens when my notes are now gone. I don't have something to kind of keep me on task. So I'm having to flip back and forth. We're going to talk about three strategies today. The first one about your core brand message, right? The second one is about developing the content that's going to convert, right? That's the second part of the strategy. And then the third is expanding that reach. What is your visibility? So if we focus on the first topic, the first strategy, which is strengthening that core brand, that message. And we've done the sales script training before. And if you haven't, go back into the replay vault. Now that Facebook is deleting the training videos from the Facebook platform, we have created a replay video vault over inside the women's resource community that you can access them for free. And I think we've got about 90% of them done. We're just double checking our list before we say we've got all of them converted over there. So you can go back and pick up any of the past trainings inside that replay vault. So when we're talking about core brand messaging, that's the first part when we're looking at our digital marketing strategy. What is your core brand? If I had to ask you, why do you believe your message isn't attracting the right client? What would you say? Good morning, Nicole. What would you say? And this isn't, and I'm going to be like fully transparent here. This is a conversation that we've been having internally within the women's business resource community. We've had this great messaging. We have an amazing, valuable product and services, and we have a great core group. But we're noticing there's a gap there. So we're answering this question right now, right? Why is our message not attracting the right clients, or why is it not landing and sticking? Right? Because we think, right, that our brand, our message has to be super crystal clear. What does that look and sound like? Right? We know it's important to be crystal clear about your message, but it depends on the message you're speaking to for your audience, right? And we've made this mistake in the past, right? We've made the mistake where we believe that we have the right message, we understand our client, and we just jump right into posting and sharing our content. And we think, okay, that we know it, but maybe we didn't do the work, right? So Nicole's saying, personally, she thinks she's not looking in the right place for her ideal client. And that's a great beginning. Knowing where your client is so important, right? And this is part of, there's so many changes going on, right? Social media platforms are adjusting, adapting, because we as consumers, right, we're consuming that data differently. And if you've done any type of research on the different platforms, which is right for you, you're going to notice that YouTube has really upped their formats. Why? Because they are taking on TikTok, they're taking on Instagram, because now you can get on there and do shorts. You can get on there and go live. You can, right? So they're starting to attract and give small businesses different options than just the standard Instagram reel or TikTok. So Susan says for her, I'm nowhere near being consistent. And I know that's important, but I've not made it a priority. And Susan, the fact that you're acknowledging it, you're a step ahead of the game because you're aware of what needs to happen, right? So many of us, and I can include myself in that, so many of us like start down this road and we think we're doing A, B, and C, but really we've done A, C, F, G, and we're forgetting the pieces in between, right? So our core brand, we go back to that messaging of our core values and how we resonate with our customers and our clients, right? And how are we articulating it? And we only know if we're on brand with our client and that it's resonating is by the data, is by looking at that engagement. How many people, we can go into Instagram, for example, and you can see the insights and see how many people have interacted, how many people actually saw your post or your reel or your story, and then it engaged or took action, right? Unless you take that step of reviewing that, you actually won't know if that core brand, that message you've created, is landing. And yeah, Susan, you're talking about being consistent, but remember, you get to choose consistency. You get to define consistency. If you're showing up 3 days a week, show up 3 days a week. If you're showing up once a week, show up once a week. Be consistent. You set the tone of consistency. So knowing that you can define that consistency and what that looks and feels like, taking a look back on what you've already done, Susan, do you feel you've started to create a pattern of posting and being consistent? Because remember, consistency is a pattern. And we as humans, we recognize patterns and we respond to patterns, right? So when we are sharing that message, the consistency isn't just necessarily showing up. Are we consistently sharing that same message? Because remember, our audience needs to see it, read it, feel it 7 to 10 times before they're going to take action. Are you vague in your messaging? And the vagueness comes from not being confident that what you're sharing has value, or what you're offering is something somebody wants. So this goes back to actually this morning's musings, right? Where I was talking about how do I start believing in myself again? And this ties right into that, right? So consistency isn't just how often you're showing up. Consistency is how often are you regularly sharing what it is you want your audience to take action on. And I'm again, like, full transparency, right? Because we all experience this. We don't do, and when I say we, the Women's Business Resource Community, we actually don't do a good enough job on being consistent in sharing the value we offer. We have a great plan and we show up and we're posting regularly, but we're not consistent with that messaging. We're vague. And that's, for us as a brand, kind of really hit home this week. We're like, we're not really out in front of this. We're being responsive instead of proactive. We are consistently showing up, but we are inconsistent in sharing the value we bring, right? So as we're talking about that brand messaging, it's not necessarily that you have to change what you share or how often you share. You have to make sure you're showing up consistently in that value-driven content, reminding people, your audience, why they want to purchase from you, why they want to participate in your events, why they want to engage with you. So part of that strategy is clearly sharing that messaging, right? So as we are moving forward with our messaging, it's how are we consistently sharing and articulating and expressing, right? So something we want to think about from a practical perspective when we're thinking about strengthening that message, that consistent message, is who are we serving, right? Is there a unique transformation that those individuals might go through? Yes, we are going to identify those main pain points, right? We're going to share how specifically we solve those. And this sounds a lot like from a service base, but when we're talking a product base, it's still the same thing, right? So the pain points, when it becomes a product, it becomes an experience. What's the experience that your audience wants to have? So we use Susan as an example because she has these beautiful pieces of jewelry she makes, product based. So the experience her potential clients are going to have is what? Showing up and feeling more confident in the jewelry they're wearing. It's going to make a positive impact. They're going to feel not just confident, but their self-worth is going to be risen, right? So how does that look and feel in your messaging? Because when it comes to service-based industries, it might be a little bit easier to identify the pain points versus the product-based. So when you're a product-based business, sometimes you have to finagle the wording, which is why I recommend my clients who are product-based to kind of look at it from not a pain point, but the experience perspective, right? How are they looking and feeling during the experience of using your product or wearing your product? So when we're thinking about our core brand messaging, we want to strengthen it. And this is some of the activities we actually have just done in the last, like since yesterday morning, we've been working on this a lot, right? Is what are the top 3 challenges of your ideal client? Service-based, right? Product-based. What are the top 3 experiences your ideal client would like to have? And then how is your service or product different by providing that solution or providing that experience, right? And you really want to start to get it down into a concise 2 or 3 sentence and how you're answering that, right? So strengthening your core brand message isn't a one-time thing. You want to do a deep dive into your core brand messaging on a regular basis. Things change. We've been remiss. We've done it a couple of times a year, I guess, the last, since 2023. We are now upping that because the landscape is changing rapidly. So internally, we are looking at, okay, what is our brand messaging? How are we adapting based on industry, based on economics, based on XYZ, right? And we are having to keep refining to make sure we are current on that. You guys as a brand, as a business, you're going to want to be looking at your industry and how often, sorry, I don't know what my dog is doing. She's making a noise. Hopefully nothing falls. Right? So you want to be looking at your industry. Does it change? How often is it changing? Right now, how are things changing? And are those changes going to impact you in your business or your ideal clients? Okay. So, and this is, when we're looking at these types of solutions, as far as refining your brand messaging, again, the Replay Vault, there's workbooks and worksheets inside the library that you guys can access and take advantage of to help walk you through some of that, clarifying your message and making sure that you're on brand. So then the next piece, right? Once we have that core brand updated, refined, clarified, now it's about creating that content. And this is when we were talking earlier, we kind of do, small businesses, we go from A to C to D to F or G. The content is kind of that, where we've jumped from A to D or E. The content is that B, C step, but B is the development of the content. It's not creating the content, right? It's not creating the visual. It's not creating the caption or understanding what the hook is or your call to action. Developing the content is, what are you going to share? When are you going to share it? How are you going to share it, right? So, because now we have our brand messaging updated, refined, we want to develop content that expands on that. We want to make sure that the content we're creating has a flow to it, that it's, and again, when I say this, I'm including myself in it, right? You don't want to create content that is like, oh, this is a great idea. And you put it together, you put a visual together and you throw it up on Instagram or Facebook or TikTok. And then the next piece of content you're creating is completely different. That's where that consistency starts to get reinforced. What you're saying and how you're saying it, there needs to be that consistent method, right? So if a strategy doesn't have a flow to it, if it doesn't have continuity to it, right? And continuity means the content itself, not how often you're showing up, that it can become confusing for people. People can be like, oh, that's not what they said in the last post. Wait a minute. Most chances people are not going to scroll back and confirm what they just saw yesterday with your content or the day before. They're just going to be confused and leave and likely scroll past you the next time because what they're left with is confusion, not clarity, right? So if you had to think of your content, what is a common thread that your ideal client or customer faces or experience that they desire to have? So thinking about that, right? Can you highlight that common thread? Can you highlight that experience? And then, is there a success story from a previous customer or client that reinforces that success, that pain point in that solution? Good morning, Jean Ann, right? So one of the avenues, some people will say, you know, what's the key mistake? Or for the experience perspective, right? Because when we're talking about services, we're talking about the pain points. And so the solution is, and what was the mistake and how do you overcome it? But with a product base, it's, if we flip it and we're talking about the experience, what's the before and after experience? So before having this product, my experience would have been A. Now that I have this product, my experience is B. So it's a then versus now, right? So with that, think about what you can be identifying a before and after to make it simple, like the term simple, right? When you're looking at that consistency of content, when you're developing that strategy, this is what you're currently doing. And if it's not hitting the mark, then this is what you need to do now. And how are you taking that clarity of messaging from that first step and implementing it into a consistent posting strategy, sharing, conversation, storytelling, where you are bringing your audience along with you and they feel that it's a natural process and that they want to engage. And then that kind of flows right into when you're looking at expanding that reach, right? And if I use Instagram as an example, you can actually look at your insights and say, it'll show you how many followers versus non-followers saw your content. And that's that visibility. And part of that expanding your visibility and that reach comes from knowing what you're putting in the content. So use of hashtags, use of hook. If it's a reel or a story where you're adding music to it, an audio piece, is it an audio that's trending? Right? So there's some things that you can be doing when you're looking at expanding that reach that you can play into the algorithm. And again, based on the platform, which is really important that you need to know, right? So as you've refined that brand messaging, and you are creating content that's resonating because you're sharing in a way that hits home for them in a consistent manner. And again, consistency in this instance is not showing up 3 days a week. Consistency is your message is consistent. You're reinforcing what you're saying each and every time, right? You now want to get it out to more people. So some people will use paid ads, right? We used paid ads a couple of years ago, and it wasn't successful for us. But that's to say that it's not a good tool. It's likely, again, taking ownership here, we likely didn't have everything set up properly, right? So again, you have to know your strengths. Facebook ads, yes, I've gone through all the training to become a Facebook ad, meta person. I only did it because I wanted to educate myself, because I did such a flop of it 2 years ago, not because I actually want to handle Facebook ads for other people, right? So I did the certification for my knowledge only. Can I do a better job this time? Possibly. But would I want to take it on? No, that's outside of my realm of expertise. I can help people and get people set up to work with a Facebook ad expert. I am not that expert. I know my boundaries, right? Aces in your places. So knowing that, there are strategic partnerships. People will use user-generated content. So people that specialize in partnering with businesses to highlight their products and services on their own platform, on their own channel, to reach a wider audience. So those strategic partnerships, coming up with a collaboration with other small businesses that are in a similar industry, that your audiences cross over, but you are not in direct competition, right? In this instance, your number one pitfall will be you will try and cast your net so wide that you're getting so many people that your real audience is falling through because your message is too broad. This is the pitfall that we have been experiencing. We've cast our net so broad that our core membership, right, over inside the Women's Business Resource Community it was too vast. We were trying to target too many types of small businesses. So really we're learning, how are we refining our own message to really connect with the right people to bring into the community as members, right? And broaden and enlarge that online community for us. So it never stops. You never stop learning. You have to keep going back in and refining. But being too niche, that's the other fault. You can be so narrow that you are actually missing some of the audiences that might be on the peripheral. So there is a fine balance, okay? And then there is such thing as like a retargeting. And I was just working with some clients on this last week within their emails, and understanding that, there's a way to use that email marketing information and that data for you to continuously retarget them. And I know that sounds crass, and it's not meant to be. But what I'm talking about is you send an email campaign, and you have, and we'll just use easy numbers, like you send it to 100 people, and 10 people open it, but don't take any action. You want to retarget those 10 people. You want to go back to those 10 people and re-engage with them. Send them more information that maybe the language is slightly tweaked to hopefully then for them not just to open, but to take action, right? Or the other element is you've sent it to 100 people, 20 people opened it, 10 people have actually clicked through and taken that step, but didn't actually follow through and either bought your product or enrolled in your service. You're wanting to retarget those people that click through differently than what you are targeting those people that just opened your email. So when you're looking at retargeting, that's the information you want to be looking at, because what you say to those people and how you say it is different, right? You can also retarget people that haven't opened it altogether and come at them from a completely different perspective to see if you can get them to actually open the email and take at least that action. So when we're talking retargeting, there's a whole opportunity there for you as a small business to say, who are my followers? Who am I engaging with? And at what level are they at their engagement? Because that's going to tell you where they're at in that know, like, and trust. And then you can start retargeting them to hopefully push them through, right? Where they're comfortable and they're starting to take more and more action. So let's see, if you had to take some action this week regarding expanding your reach, what do you think you guys could do? What do you think one step could be that you could take this week to expand your reach? So something you guys could do is maybe do some social listening. So researching where your audience is living online, right? You can maybe plan one small retargeting campaign. You can align one of your messages and your calls to action with that brand clarity that you just did, that exercise you went through, right? So when we're talking about digital marketing and the strategy to go along with it, those 3 steps, right? Really clarifying your brand messaging. And you can take this step every single time you want to create a new campaign. Clarify what you're saying and how you're saying it to ensure you're on brand and it's aligned with your core values, and that you want to make sure that it's going to resonate with that target audience. All right. So almost every time you create a new campaign, not a weekly email campaign is what I'm talking about, but a marketing campaign. You have a specific goal in mind. You're either launching a new product or service, or you're launching a new event and you want people to register for, right? The second is the content that goes along with that. You want to develop it. You don't want to jump from the A to D to E to G, right? You want to make sure that the content you're developing contains that core messaging, is aligned, and it's focusing on either that experience or the pain point. Because then that third piece, when you're expanding your reach, when you've done that research, then all of a sudden you're expanding who's going to see your content, right? So questions. And while I'm waiting for you guys to catch up, thank you for being patient in the beginning. For those of you that were here and watched me muddle through as technology was completely giving me a meltdown, literally melting down. Everything I opened was blank and black, and I couldn't see anything, and I was struggling, even to the point when I got onto the Zoom live, my camera wasn't on and my mic wasn't on. So I was on the struggle bus this morning for real, for real. Okay, so questions. Anything to do with what we talked about today? Anything to do with other pieces of your business? This is kind of the open Q&A that we have every week. And additionally, this Thursday is the Savvy in the Square. If you haven't registered, I'll drop the link in the comments after we're done to register and save your seat. It's 12:30, Thursday the 10th. And it's going to be basically our monthly networking event. It's free. Just got to sign into your Women's Business Resource Community account to join in on that. What else is happening? I think that's all we've got for this week outside of today. If you've got questions for the morning musings, shoot me a DM with those or drop them in the comments. If there's something specific you want me to focus on and answer during one of those morning musings, I would love to do that. Let's see. think that's it. I think that's all. So, and you know what's going to happen? I'm going to open up my notes document and uh, my notes from today's meeting to keep me on task are going to be there. And yeah, see, I just opened them. How interesting is that? Because that's just the way life is going for today. This is the technology challenge we've had. All right. So now that I've got my notes, let me just double check that I didn't miss anything. Let me just make sure I didn't miss anything. All right. All right. Yeah. So the only other thing we didn't really talk about when we talked about that, expanding your reach with visibility, now that I have my notes, is the funnel, your sales funnel, right? You want to make sure that you're taking into consideration what does that funnel look like? And what are the steps for each and every part of that? Oh, thank you, Susan. You're welcome. You can tell the lighting that you can't see. I'm like actually completely beat red. Thank you. I appreciate it. I appreciate it. And this is a complete side note. But had this happened, let me say, we started these in June of 2023. Had this experience this morning happened 18 months ago, you know what my MO would have been? My MO would have been, oh, live canceled, technical difficulties, couldn't get on. I would have made up an excuse because I would have been too embarrassed, right? I would have been that self-doubt, my self-confidence would have been shaken. And like this, where I'm like, they're going to roll with me. So that muscle, right, I really worked on that living in the real moment muscle, and it's paying off. So, yeah. So growth happens even when we don't want it. So, all right. I appreciate all of you guys. Savvy in the Square on Thursday, 12:30 p.m. Eastern. I'll drop the link to register, save your seat. It's fun. The more people that show up, and this isn't a real word, so the teachers out there listening, excuse me, but it's funner. It's just funner when there's more people. So, and then, yeah, so I think we're good. Thank you all for being here. I appreciate you all. And we'll see you guys next Tuesday. And hopefully I'll see all of you on Thursday at Savvy in the Square. And if you're in anywhere mid-Michigan, we have a beautiful sunny day out there. So get outside and get some fresh air today for you guys. All righty. All right. Appreciate you all. Have a beautiful day.